but without the pressure, you wouldn't be able to achieve quite what your potential is. You need the pressure to get to the maximum of your potential. What's going on? Welcome to the Amazing Marketing Show. We talk about all things marketing, and not just the marketing itself, but everything that marketing affects in our own personal lives. And I'm talking about breakfast, lunch, dinner, night, what we're thinking, what we're doing, what we're feeling. Maybe like a feelings episode here. Feelings are good, right, Chris?
Dmitri, what up, bro?
Living the dream, as always.
Yeah, man, they're just that, right? They're feelings, and I think we'll talk about it a bit more. I've been thinking that I can identify the feeling and where it's at and detach, and I sometimes think I'm good with that, but maybe as we talk, we'll talk about how I'm realizing that I'm maybe not as good as that or good at that as I may have thought.
Kind of leads into the question of what are the feelings good for anyway? Are they good in the first place, or are machines better and AIs take over? But maybe we'll get to that a little bit further on in the episode. But what's going on with you, man? How's your week been, and what's new?
Bro, it's been chaotic. We have the man in the arena segments, and I feel like this week, in particular yesterday, has been a man in the arena type moment. And there's something you were saying prior to us recording that resonated with me, and I've heard our buddy Cosm say it. My business partner, Daniel Molina, shout out to Daniel. He said this yesterday, is when you look back, like right now you have big life marketing, right, Dmitri? And let's say you sell it tomorrow for $1 bajillion and you sell off into the sun. And you have that high of selling it that at some point you wake up in the morning and you're like twiddling your thumbs, like, okay, what to do next? And as you look back, and this is the point that Cosmo makes, and my boy Daniel made, and other people will make, is that these highs and lows of building the business is the fun part. Like, they're the good times. So yesterday was a kick in the nuts, but it's going to be part of the story of the good times.
Well, a kick in the nuts becoming part of the story of the good times. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Tell us more.
Should I talk about what happened yesterday, or just more of that concept?
Yeah, no. Tell us what happened, and then we'll start. Maybe we'll relate to the concept, because I mean it does resonate with me. I think it'll resonate with the audience too. If I hear you correctly, it's that in the moment it's difficult, and you wouldn't choose it if you had to. If you have the option, you wouldn't choose that difficult moment. But then looking back on it, you're grateful for it once you're past it, I suppose. So yeah, let's hear about your difficult moment.
Absolutely, right. So we all have highs and lows in the entrepreneurial world, in the arena. Yesterday was a bit of a low. We had a client. So again, for those who don't listen, co-own a agency that services home service contractors, plumbers, electricians, plumbers, electricians, HVAC, all that. So we had one of the electricians call, and he sent me a text. And long story short, there's a Google business profile, right? I would assume I'm just going to assume that people know what Google business profiles are. When you click on the website link in his Google business profile, it took them to some random link from another company we work with. Now, you have to understand the ramifications of this in the home service world. Most people are going to contact these people through their Google business profile. They're either going to call through it, or they're going to click the website, go to the website and call. So this is not a small issue. It is a major issue. That's one. Two, the client himself. And by the way, shout out to the client. They know who they are. I can tell that they were flustered, to say the least. Not happy, to say the least, but I can actively tell that the client was doing their best to communicate rationally and be level. So shout out to you, client. When we talked about that after the whole storm was done, because they could have easily just flew off the handle, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I would have understood. I wouldn't let them disrespect me, but I understand why they would be so upset. And so here's the situation, Dmitri, is with the Google Business Profile. This is not like the PPC where you can see the edit history. You don't know what was changed and when they changed it, and so on and so forth. Somebody from our team went in there and put in the incorrect link. And this guy's like, what the heck is happening? Calls have been low. How is this why my calls have been low all month? Is this why my calls were a little low last month? Like, has this been going on for a year? Like, all these things are going on in their head, and I understand, right? I would be thinking the exact same thing. And I was in a situation, Dimitri, where I had to at least call the client and acknowledge that I'm working on it, but I had zero answers. So navigating a call like that is not easy. And what I did was I said, hey, let's get off the phone. Let's get on Zoom. So I could at least talk to him face to face. And the whole thing I wanted to communicate there, my whole thing was just, I'm working on it. Several different ways of saying I'm working on it, but it's hard when you don't have answers in the moment. And it's even harder when you're not confident you're going to get clear answers. So we hang up and I'm flustered and I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? So after I hop on a client meeting, during that other client meeting, this is a separate meeting. During the other separate meeting, I realized, you know what? Hey, what I could at least do is go check the incorrect link that was in there. I can go to analytics and see when that incorrect link started getting tons of traffic. So I could at least tell the client when it happened. All right. And I don't want to get into the detail of the story, but long story short, identifying when it happened allowed me to say, hey, this happened around August 11th to the end of this month. We're going to compensate your pay per click. Whatever you spent in pay per click, because our pay per click drives traffic to the Google Business Profile, we'll compensate that. On our end, we're going to try to figure out the who. And so the challenge is just that, like several conversations internally of who's handling what, who's touching what, why this wasn't caught, what's going on. This makes the company look bad, and so on and so forth. And so long story short, you ended up getting it handled. By the way, if you ever have any issues with the Google Business Profile, you can submit a ticket to Google, and usually tickets to Google, for me, they've gone into the abyss. Google actually responded to this ticket, and we were able to figure out who did it, which was a third-party vendor, which introduces a whole nother issue, right? Now we have this third-party vendor who messed up, but it makes us look bad. So things got resolved yesterday, Dmitri, and we handled it as best we could. And the situation is good. It's good. And at the end of the night, I was exhausted because other stuff happened yesterday. I was exhausted, but I was telling myself, hey, you know what? That's done. You had a tough day, but you're good. You handled it well. Let's get some sleep, wake up tomorrow, and get back at it. I'm thinking I'm good. I'm thinking I'm just tired, but I wake up for the morning, my brain's just going. It's just going. And part of that, what happened yesterday, was part of what was happening in my brain this morning. I have a neuro um, headband scanner you could put on yourself for meditation, so you can actually measure your brain waves in meditation and see when you're calm, measure your heart rate, measure when your mind is empty or when it's not. And I thought, like, I was doing the things that I usually do when I'm getting a decent score there. This morning, I thought that I was doing those things. I really believed that I was there and I was empty, blah, blah, blah. But when I looked at the data, it was anything but. My brain, and so we can go several different ways with this, Dmitri. But long story short, yesterday was tough. I thought that I did handle it well. And I thought that I was good to go. But internally, my nervous system completely disagreed.
I want to know more about this meditation hacking device thing, but we'll leave that aside for now. It sounds really cool and maybe useful, and also a telltale sign that you're a real entrepreneur. Like you're optimizing your meditation. I think that's really cool, by the way. But okay, so this situation, I have so many questions about it, but let's start with the physical reaction that you've had in your nervous system, and it's extended into today, even though your conscious mind thinks you're over it. What do you think is going on in your subconscious that it's still processing or still being quite active?
I think that we are all kids with trauma running around in adult bodies, and we find different ways to um, we find we deal with these traumas as a kid, right? And as we get older, we just get a little more sophisticated with the ways that we deal with that trauma or hide it or whatever. If that comment makes any sense. So long story short, I think that whatever happened with this client triggered something in me. I bet you I got triggered. And it could be something, and that would be even more deep work. But just right now, as I talk to you, it could be at its level, at its core, it could be like mom and dad are really upset with me, and they're going to be mad. They're not going to love me for the next 3 or 4 weeks. They're not going to love me, and I'm unworthy. That really could be what's happening inside. It really could.
Man, you're so right about us being little kids in adult bodies. It's like, when you're a kid and you look at adults and you think they must be adults, and then you get to be that age, like, nobody is an adult. Nobody. Nobody is an adult. And yeah, we are carrying around that pain from, and okay, so it's manifesting it through work, and it's cool that you can tell something is up. And I'm sure with the type of work that you do, eventually you will get to the bottom of it if you wanted to. And I think that it's important to note that we've talked about the difference between W-2 workers and business owners, and the difference that it is. There's a difference potentially in pay, whether on the low end or the high end. You might be making nothing, working 80 hours a week as an entrepreneur, or you could be making, let's say, double or more of what a W-2 would be making. And so but there's the risk, but it's more than that. You're also risking your nervous system, like you just outlined. Whereas at a W-2, you might not quite as much, I would think. What do you think?
Yeah, you're right. With a W-2, this is, you show up, you do a task, and for the most part, the average person can go home and you clock in, you clock out. And there's probably days, I'm not trying to say that because somebody's a W-2, they don't have stress, right? I'm sure that they will wake up in the middle of the night because of some conversation that you have with your boss. I'm not saying that for everybody. I'm just saying that when you own something, at least for me, when I own something, I own it. It is a part of me. It's this business is a reflection of me. So I guess going back to the situation, when the business is criticized and something goes really bad, then it's like I'm being criticized, and then I've done something really bad.
Well, because you're taking accountability. I mean, look at the way people take care of it. And I'll speak for myself. I've rented, and now I own a house, and I take care of the house differently. Although I've always taken good care of any house that I've lived in. It's a completely different situation when it's my own house. I almost seek out what I should be fixing, and what I should be improving, and all this stuff. And I think the same way with I think maybe that's even like as a decent analogy. It's the difference between a W-2 and a founder owner or whatever is the same as a renter versus homeowner.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I've been up since 4 this morning.
Well, Chris, let me ask you. So how did you first hear about that there was something wrong, and what was your initial reaction, both in your mind and in your body?
The client sent me a text, and you can kind of get the vibe in the text. And I was on a meeting with another, difficult client when this client sent me that text. And initially, I think I felt it in my stomach because I could just tell by the vibe. And this client's not the client that, you don't want to mess up with anybody, but there's some clients that you really don't want to mess up with, right? This is one of the individuals that I just felt it in my gut, right? And again, I think that sinking feeling and whatever, it had to trigger something. It's like when you're a kid and you mess up and parents are pissed and about to beat you or something, you get that sinking feeling in your gut, whatever it is. So I'm still processing it all. And this conversation right here on live on the podcast is you're watching me realize that, yeah, you know what, I was triggered yesterday. What was triggered? I don't know, something from when I was a kid, but I was triggered and my nervous system has not fully recovered, even though I think I'm good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it seems like you've addressed the problem, even though you have to cover some of the ad spend and whatever. It's probably not that big of a hit in the grand scheme of things,
It's
and
not.
the problem is resolved, but the nervous system is still running. And it might be the case where even if you don't really get to the root of it, uh, the system, your nervous system will recover fully. It needs time, and maybe people who are completely burnt out, why are they burnt out? Is because they hadn't they've put so much stress onto the nervous system, and now it can't recover. It's just burnt out, and I guess that's what we want to avoid.
I know you had a call yesterday and I want to get to that, but I also want to go back to what you said earlier when you opened this podcast talking about feelings. And they're so, feelings are important, but they're so like they lie to you, you know? Like I feel like we are in this body of ours that gives us these feelings. People say all the time, like technology has advanced significantly, but our feelings haven't. So, like, the threat of getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, we still feel that type of threat. If we were single and going to walk up to a girl and ask for her number or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, that scaredness or whatever it is, that prime, those things that were supposed to protect us back in days where stuff was primal, it's still there. And so I feel like, as I overreact with some of those primal emotions in my life, that's something that happened yesterday where my nervous system, my body is overreacting to a situation that is resolved now and it was handled well and not that big of a deal.
Yeah. I've had client texts come in the past, and I've had the same sinking feeling, and like certain ones, and there's clients who do it uh, better than others. Some of them, like, how it goes, is like any little minor problem, even if it doesn't exist, they think it exists and they just assume that it's your fault.
Yes.
But the problem doesn't exist, and even if it did, it wouldn't have been your fault. It's like, and that revs up my nervous system too, because it's almost like, well, this is disrespectful. Why like, what, we're working together to the same goal. I'm trying to help your business. You're paying me to help your business, yet the way that this relationship is going is not healthy. But looking at it from afar, you're like, well, why are you reacting that way? You just know how they are. The texts are going to come in, and what's the big deal anyway? And if you start working together, oh well, so be it. But why am I reacting that way? I think to myself, and then I'm starting to think that the more of these things that we can actually achieve, like if I'm able to achieve peace, even in a situation of a text like that coming in, and an actual problem maybe, and something that we did truly screw up in, and I have no nervous system reaction, I don't think that means I don't have feelings. That just means I've now evolved into someone who can handle bigger stresses, and I could then move up into a bigger game, a bigger entrepreneurial game, or a bigger new stage in my personal relationship. Like, I want to get to that level. And so how?
You use the analogy you just used is kind of the conversation I had with my business partner. And again, I really want to get to your call, but I'll make this final point because you made a really good point. I was talking to my business partner and about this situation and how I might have handled this specific situation 2 years ago versus today. And I use an analogy, or I use a jujitsu analogy, where in jujitsu, when you're a white belt, you feel people's pressure, and I can't explain it to you. When you get somebody who knows how to distribute their body weight to put pressure on you, it's like you have a car on you. It's if you're claustrophobic or if you're I can't describe it. You will panic, you will squirm, you will tap out just from the pressure that somebody's putting on your chest. Can't describe it. But as you advance and you get to the upper levels, the brown, the black levels, you start to find peace there. Same pressure, but you're there and you're like, okay, I'm here. This sucks. I just got to wait till I get it open and get out of here. And
Mhm.
you're not going to tap to it. You're just used to it, and you're sitting at same pressure, same amount of pressure, but the difference is the experience. And that's exactly what you're saying. Where how do we get to where you're talking about? I'm not sure if my nervous system will never react to things. That'd be nice, but I know that as I keep dealing with the pressure of business, my nervous system will get better at reacting because it'll just get used to it over time.
I mean, say what you will about some politicians, but they handle a lot of pressure, and I look up to them in certain ways. Like, wow, like you handle it from both sides, from everywhere. Even in your own party, you have other people trying to take your job and criticizing you and all this stuff. But in a general election, whether it's for president or anything, any election, it's like super dirty and personal, and people are attacking you and digging stuff up, and you just have to take it. And if you have a very sensitive nervous system, that's not a game you can play in. And if your goal to when you're entering that space is to create change and influence in a positive way, hopefully, you're not going to be able to, because your nervous system is your bottleneck. It's actually this is something I'm curious for my own self, is like, how do you, are there, and maybe you have examples, but I'm kind of almost saying this rhetorically, but how do you strengthen your nervous system, and how do you overcome the subconscious defense mechanisms that aren't actually helping?
I know that I handled yesterday's situation much better than I would have handled it last year or the year before or even before that. As far as like in the moment dealing with it, um, and my nervous system was all over the place. But I think it would have been even more so a year ago or 2 years. I think it's just what you said, where it's a combination of experience and deep work and recognition and self awareness, a bunch of these types of things. But when they all culminate, at least for me, um, I've gotten better. I'm not as advanced as I may have thought. Clearly,
But I do like your jujitsu analogy, and it's just a matter of getting to the next belt level, and at which point you become not you. It's not that you even react negatively to the pressure; you actually positively react to the pressure, which is a kind of a cool concept to think about. That without that pressure, and we know that the pressure makes diamonds, but without the pressure, maybe you wouldn't be able to achieve quite what your potential is. You need the pressure to get to the maximum of your potential.
that's a transferable concept, Dimitri. Like, what, and something that's worth it. When do you not have to go through some suck to get it? Whether you want to get muscle, whether you want to lose weight, whether you want to have a good marriage, whether you want to build a big business, something worth getting. There's a necessary period of suck that is
Mm-hmm.
going to happen that you have to get through.
Yeah. Wow. Like, okay, so there's a period of suck, and you don't choose it in the moment. It kind of has to choose you. I think the people who advance to a certain level, they know to a certain degree, I guess you do have to choose it. You choose pain for yourself. Uh, Interesting. It's like it is against human nature to choose pain for yourself, but if I guess if you're mentally prepared to do so, and your nervous system is prepared for that level, and you want to take a step out, then that's the only way to not get bored.
Yeah. And then speaking of not getting bored, like, tell us about your phone call yesterday.
You're talking about the one with the good news, or
Yes.
the okay?
Or
Yeah.
whatever you want to talk about, bro. I don't want to pigeonhole you. Whatever you feel like talking about.
Well, let's see. I mean, there was a phone call that I had where I was in my element as far as where I am best in business. Now, I've taken trainings on mergers and acquisitions. I've taken accounting classes, CPA classes. I've taken, uh, I got a degree in statistics. I know math very well. I know spreadsheets very well, and I've been doing marketing for over a decade, and I know marketing well. And in this call, there's a CMO, there's a CFO, and I'm in my element of understanding it. I'm not BSing. I'm not making anything up. It just feels like I'm the perfect person with the perfect skill set for this problem. And the client picked up on it and then wrote really kind words and praise as far as being happy with our working relationship. And it is not a super common thing that happens, I think. And most of the time we do get those texts, like the one you got is more so a problem. And I could speak for myself as I'm probably also more likely to pick out something that's wrong rather than give praise when something is good. But when you do get it and when it's genuine, or at least I feel like it's genuine and it's truly productive, it's like one of the high points, and it feels good. I'm grateful for it, and I wanted to share that with you.
I want to ask you the same question you asked me. When you saw that text and read it, um, do you remember how you might have felt or reacted?
Like with the schedules that we have between work and family and whatever, it's almost like you don't have time because when you're reading a text, you're on your way to something
Yeah,
else, and you're already
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
rethink or reposition your mind to what the next thing is going to be. I kind of have an aside about that too, by the way. So if we have time, I'll get to it. So, but my reaction was some relief that they felt that, because if they didn't on that call, it'd be like, dang. So there's some relief, and there's also a piece to it. It's a piece, PEACE, where the there's no need to worry in that moment, at least about that problem, and it's peaceful, and I like that.
This is not for you. This question, I'm going to pose a question, but it's not for you to really answer directly for you. It's more of you got me thinking about something. So we talked about triggers prior with my story. And you and I have talked about this before, and we go back and forth. You have counterpoints to this, but my thing is I want to try to be as detached as possible. I still want to feel things, but I want to be detached as those things seem opposed. But anyways, it's a whole other conversation. But my thought is, I feel like I can get triggered negatively, like apparently what happened yesterday. I feel like I can get triggered positively, where, for example, my business partner sent me a text message and he was super happy and thrilled with the way I handled the entire thing. And I felt emotions, and I noticed that I felt emotions. And I was like, let me detach from this shit. This is, as I'm talking to you, I'm feeling like, was that a again, not I'm not trying to get super deep or whatever. I'm talking to you like I would talk to you privately, except we're on a podcast. But I would say this: it makes me wonder: is that like again my dad or my mom saying "Good job, Chris"? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, thank you." Like, like I wonder because I felt a lot of emotion when he sent that to me. I was like, I don't want to be so attached to
Mm-hmm.
this positive reinforcement. Thank you, but I don't want all this high of it. If
Mm-hmm.
that makes any sense.
It sounds like you want to flatten the baseline and leave the emotions for bigger and better things, maybe potentially. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
I don't want to get swept up in the emotion, whether it could be good or bad. And I wonder if, anyways, I don't want to go super deep, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Is whether it's on a good end or a bad end, you don't want to be the dog chasing the piece of
Yes.
meat, or
Yeah.
afraid of getting reprimanded. Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
like, look, as marketers, we're supposed to be tapping into these subconscious desires and fears that we have ourselves, obviously, as humans. And I think maybe talking about them like even makes us potentially better marketers, because although everyone has these, and there's certain ways of getting people's ups and downs. I mean, why do people overeat, overspend, overdrink, over all these things? Because they have fears and desires. I think that's basically it, especially ones that are carried over from a while ago that they don't feel like dealing with. So you can sell them something. You can sell them something. You can sell them an experience. You can sell them, but it's still ultimately down to what fear or desire are you addressing. And you are saying you don't want to be, you don't want anyone to have that power over you.
Absolutely. I want to have that as best I can, have that power over myself. And this kind of goes along with a book I'm reading. There's this book called Stealing Fire that I started reading. And most books I've started reading this year, Dmitri, I haven't finished. I'm not even that guy. I usually power through books. This year, I'm like, man, if this thing sucks, I'm not going to waste, 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever it is, getting through this. And so it's been the tale of my years. I haven't found a lot of great books. Now I'm at the point where I'm looking for a reason not to read the book. I started Stealing Fire, and I was out, I think, 2 or 3 times looking for a reason to not continue. And it's just, I'm on it. Like, it is just sucking me
Mm-hmm.
in. And one of the things it talks about is how we chase altered states as humans. We're chasing it in various forms. We chase altering our states. And I don't even know why I'm telling you that right now, but it just popped up in my head.
Well, I kind of feel like I've altered my state in this conversation, and it feels good.
Yeah, man. This has been uh, therapeutic for me, and that was not the intent of the podcast.
Well, it kind of is. It kind
Uh,
of is. It's all therapy, whether you're participating in this or listening. And to you guests that are coming up, and you might be prepping for your episode, it's going to be therapy for you too.
um, I don't know when you want to end it. You can end this whenever, but you said when I asked you about the phone call, you said which one. Um, is this the platform to talk about the other one, or no?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I want to make this platform one where you can talk about anything, because really marketing is in everything, and it can always be related back. So I'm sure anything, whether it's personal, even, it can always be brought back into some kind of marketing improvement that we can implement in our business. But like there's other calls, of course, that are happening, whether it's with team members. It's there's always something, but I think the most important thing that I'm doing right now is figuring out how to stay the most clear and calm. Kind of like, I think it's a lot of what you're saying too. It's not being whiplashed by the ups and downs. It's baselining. It's figuring out how much time I can spend on XYZ things that do need to happen during the day, so that I can be most productive in my work, in my relationships. And we've all heard that more is less, or less is more in some cases. And I found that to be the case this past week, or these past couple weeks. We've had some of our best performing weeks of all time in our clients' accounts. We've are doing better in all these areas that we track. whether it's actual KPIs, whether it's quality of content, quality of copy, all these different things, when it's channeled, I feel like it's been channeled. Things that would take 4 hours, we channel them into a 1 hour block, and that works, and that leaves 3 hours to even do nothing or to do rest. And by the way, doing nothing is a funny thing. You know, there's these memes about, or there always have been, about how women make fun of men because they're not thinking anything. You know, like, what do you think about? Nothing. And they think that he's thinking about some other woman, but in fact he is thinking about nothing. I actually think that meme is getting less popular because it's becoming less and less true because of our devices. And just saying that out loud, devices, I never knew that vices was in that. Devices are vices.
Yes.
So I think devices are an amazing tool. Our laptops, our cell phones, all of these things, even TVs, they are incredible tools. And I'm, you know, whether it's for work, for personal development, for growth, even for your kids in some respects, the biggest difference, or the biggest thing I'm working on, is I know the devices are going to be there. What can I do to minimize time on devices, A, and B, when we are on devices, what can I do to maximize my efficiency on the devices and then get away from them? Because you like have to get away. And that's so, and I think I've been successful to a degree, and I feel like that might be in part why August has been a positive in the business and in personal, I would say, because it's very difficult to switch focus. This is what I found in my life. When I'm the most frustrated with something, when I'm the most non-present, is when I'm trying to shift focus a lot. I think maybe I have only the ability to shift focus like literally 2-3 times a day tops. At bet, like the best thing is only shifting it 1 time a day or no times a day. You just have a day where you're focused on one thing. But if you have to switch, let's say I'm focused on this one thing, and then I switch, and it's family time. And then you don't switch back. There's no coming back, and that day is so much more productive and fulfilling than a day where I have to. Okay, I'm going to do an hour of family, then go do the 2-hour project, then back to seeing a friend, then to work, then back to dinner with the family, and putting. It's like all of it becomes a chore in that case. So I'm trying. So in that long way, what I'm trying to say is I'm really trying to actively do less. Overall, and less switches, much fewer switches.
It makes sense. What came to my mind was like, you know, this mental capital, this cognitive capital we have, and the more that we switch things or whatever, the more we spend. That's how I feel. What you're talking about is how I feel. I've never articulated it, I guess. But yeah, you have a good point where if I switch from this project, even with work, like I'm working on something and there's something else that comes up, then there's a problem, there's another problem, there's something else, like that day is not nearly as productive as if, hey, you know what? This is the focus today, and I'm going to knock this thing out all day. Or these are the 2 focuses today on whatever it is, and I'm going to knock these 2 things out. Whatever. It's the switching back and forth and this and that. It leads to the less productive days.
Yeah, you know, we're at our time. I think we can go a few more minutes if you have it. I think it might be.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For
There's that kind of, see, I switched and then it threw me off as a little example of how switching is. Oh, well, I was thinking related back to the nervous system and handling more, maybe the next level is being able to handle more switches. I would assume, although I'm not sure, but let me throw this thought out there. I'm not attaching myself to this thought. I just want to throw a thought out there. Is that like, let's say Elon Musk or high-powered CEOs, CEO of Apple, whatever, Microsoft, all the big companies, do they switch constantly? I wonder, or are they focused on daily? I have this to do today. Don't bother me unless it's a complete emergency. I wonder what they do.
I bet the answer is yes, meaning both, depending on the
Mm.
person. If I had to bet, I bet there is the high powered person who is, the one thing type where they're just focused on that. That's it. The thing that makes the biggest difference for the day, and that's all they're doing. Don't mess with them. There's probably another high powered CEO who's all over the damn place. Their day is just scattered, and and it's complete chaos to us. But that's how they operate, and they get a ton done, and their comfort is in chaos.
Hmm.
I bet there's
Yeah,
both.
you're probably right. It's both. There's this thing I read about CEOs, and really the only metric that they're measured in should be or is what percentage of the decisions that they make are well, I guess in retrospect good decisions. And it was kind of a crazy stat. I don't know if this is true. The stats are, stats can be anything, but
Mhm.
it's something like a a really good CEO makes 60% or 65% good decisions, and a top CEO where they're getting paid tens of millions of dollars only makes a few more good decisions. Like maybe they make 70% good decisions, and it's such a minor difference, but because the leverage is so high in these big companies that the 5% could mean hundreds of millions to the bottom line or billions to the bottom line and trillions in market cap in some cases. And a bad CEO is going to make only 50% good decisions or something like that. And so it's like, how can you structure your day and everyone's different. Like you said, it could be both. It could be chaotic depending on your personality and how you want to start. But so maybe figuring out optimizing your own life is like, what do I have to do in my life to make the most good decisions or the highest percentage of good decisions? And maybe that means sleeping in until 10 a.m. and not listening to the gurus who say you got to wake up at 4 and have 3 work days every day because you're staying up. And I mean, maybe it works for some people. Like you might only have to work 2 hours a day and you actually make more good decisions.
Yeah, I mean, look at I haven't listened to Ferris in a very long time. He wrote the 4 Hour Work Week, super popular, right? But when I did listen to him, it seemed like at some point, whatever season it was that I was listening, season in his life that it was when I was listening to him, it didn't seem like Ferris did a whole lot every day. But when he did do something, when he does work, it's just 3 hour block. At that time, I was listening to him was a very short block where he was all in on something that was going to really move the needle. And so I think you're right where there's no one way, but I know that there's people who optimize the day so that it is in line with their strengths.
All right. Well, I think we'll close with this, and my takeaway is that I need to see what my nervous system is up to, and maybe that's kind of the key to everything. It's like a calm nervous system, clear head. And so, what do I have to do to calm the nervous system so that my brain is ready to make good decisions?
I know we're wrapping up. Just one more thing. I asked John Vroman, head of Front Row Dads, what he would have told himself back when his kids were 4 or 5. And he would have said, calm your nervous system.
Man, that's good advice. We'll have to get him on at some point.
Yes, sir.
John, come on, talk to us. Okay, cool. Then let's stop here. Chris, it's such a pleasure chatting with you, man. I enjoy this episode a lot.
Thanks for the therapy, y'all. Peace.